18 years ago, I stood in front of my dad's room, knocked the door with caution, scared about the response to the request I was about to make. I was just rounding up my ordinary national diploma in civil engineering from the Lagos State Polytechnic and wanted to cross over to study architecture at the University of Lagos. Barring sitting for another JAMB examination, however, UNILAG's diploma program was the easiest route to achieve my plan, but the most expensive at the time. Apart from the cost, you also stood the risk of not being allowed into the degree program if your diploma results weren't so good. You see, direct entry based on my OND result would have been a logical transition method into UNILAG. I, however, wasn't sure what to expect of the result. I hadn't taken the OND too seriously. I therefore devised the change of course in case my dad asked, as my perfect excuse for not wanting to wait to take the direct entry route. When my dad came out, I summoned all the available courage at my disposal and muttered my request in as few stumbling words as I could find. He listened carefully, his eyes piercing my soul as he read between the lines. As expected, my dad inquired why I didn't want to wait for my OND result and use it for a direct entry. I stuck to my plan. I told him competition might be steep for architecture in UNILAG and a civil engineering OND may not stand a chance. The look on his face told me he wasn't buying my story. I will not gamble with my money. He responded rather sternly. Architecture is for the serious-minded. He continued. Then he looked me in the eye and offered me a lifeline. He said I should go speak to my mom, and if she had enough faith in me and was prepared to take the gamble, then she could pay the fees with her money. And if I passed and got admitted into the architecture degree program at the end of the diploma year, then he would refund her money. My mom agreed. The only problem for a retired civil servant, whom she already was at the time, was that she did not have the money. She had to go borrow the funds, and I know the cost of that money. During the diploma program, I therefore had little or no time for social activities. I was not going to let my mom down. I was not going to let myself down. I applied myself diligently and studied as much as I could. I finished the program with a 4.05 cumulative grade point average out of a possible 5 points. I was admitted on merit into architecture. You see, my dad had to pay his way through the higher institution by himself. He had to work for a few years in order to afford this. He had sponsored himself to the UK to study, started a family, and then moved back home to Nigeria. My father was a well-respected structural engineer. He was among those responsible for the rebuilding of the then famous and iconic Cocoa House in Ibadan when it got burnt. He knew his onions. He was absolutely diligent and hardworking. With my dad, there was no shortcut. He was the reflection of the term, the dignity of labor. He did not spare words whenever I was out of line. He was never going to condone any form of indiscipline. I remember back in the boarding house in secondary school, I never had the luxury of taking any contraband item to school like some other kids did. It was simply impossible to have such a conversation with my dad. My dad reminded me always of the Nigeria he had grown up, which was responsible for the man he had become. A country that rewarded hard work and discipline. A country with high values and good morals. The society as a whole honored and respected industry and diligence. My dad was not absolutely wealthy, but he was content. He could afford the basic things that made for a comfortable life. I was therefore brought up with the concept of discipline, of diligence, of hard work, and of contentment. It was always drummed into my ears. I remember every time I went to my aunt's house as a young boy under 10 years old, her late husband, a former deputy vice chancellor at the University of Lagos and a professor emeritus of economics, would say to me every time, "Only children that work hard and face their studies can be my friend." I was taught that self-worth and self-value has nothing to do with one's immediate material possession. Even though my dad had 2 vehicles, I had seen him on several occasions leave the vehicles at home and go take public buses whenever he didn't see the need to drive. He was a product of a Nigeria in which the most respected members of a family were not necessarily the wealthiest, but those that excelled professionally. Wealth was only respected when the source was verifiable. It was impossible, for instance, to bring home an expensive vehicle as a young man without giving detailed explanation as to where the money came from. In our communities, wealth without trace brought shame and not fame. Raising a child wasn't even the responsibility of the parents alone, but also that of the community. If I had done something shameful and a neighbor's parent had seen me, The repercussion was as good as my parents seeing me. A good name was cherished more than anything else. Obafemi Jeremiah Awolowo, Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, Benjamin Nnamdi Azikiwe, Olufumi Ransom Kuti, to mention but a few, men and women who build their names with hard work and diligence. Individuals among those referred to as the founding fathers of our nation. They were not men and women of easy virtue. We were pace setters. WNTV in Ibadan was the name of the first broadcasting station in the whole of tropical Africa, which later became NTA. Our music sold our values, and if you were involved in anything shady, it was impossible to sing about it. We heard songs like Iwe Kiko, Láìsí ọkọ àti àdá, kò ì pé o, kò ì pé o, iṣẹ́ àgbẹ̀ níṣẹ́ ilé wa, ẹni kò ṣiṣẹ́, ó máa jalè. Our entertainment reminded us of whom we were and preached the values of our nation. I won't forget Kokoro Adon, the TV series that promoted agriculture. Tales by Moonlight taught our folklores to our kids. I'm immediately reminded of Things Fall Apart, and even the all-too-famous Ken Saro-Wiwa's Bassi and Company. It was all entertainment, but entertainment that taught us lessons, served as corrective media, and sold us values, values which shaped us as a people. Slowly but steadily, our values seemed to filter away. It went from bad to worse and from worse to terrible. A new day is upon us, however. A fresh wind is blowing across the four walls of our nation through the length and breadth of our 36 surnames. From Akimorin in the southwest to Uruan in the south-south, from Dara in the north to Ogoja in the east, there is an awakening. The bedpans are setting. A new Nigeria is at hand. Our best days as a nation are just ahead. Nigeria is not yet done. We must, however, stand up as a people in our little spaces and start to effect the change we desire, first as individuals, then as families, then as communities. The change we desire starts with us. The core of our problems is really not that of a private club consisting of seemingly inaccessible individuals referred to as the government, whom we easily accuse for the squandering of our resources. Actually, every elected or appointed official is simply a product of a home, a product of a family, and a product of a community. If we also consider the fact that wealth is almost nothing to an average black man, except there are people who would praise him, respect him, and eulogize him for what he has, we can therefore conclude that for every public official that loots our treasury, there are people like you and I back at home praising him, respecting him, and eulogizing him, giving him a reason to keep up the act. But if we, however, decided again as a people, in our homes and in our families and in our communities, to publicly rebuke any of our own that enters into public office and returns richer than their salaries can afford, then perhaps the looting of our commonwealth won't be so attractive. The work therefore begins with you and I. We cannot celebrate corruption when it is related to us and then expect change in our society. The opportunity for public office afforded a friend, a relative, or an associate should not and must not be seen as finally our time has come. To seek persistent financial favors and therefore place financial pressures on relatives and associates elected into public office based on their positions is to promote corruption. We must desist from such. We must condemn what is wrong, even if it were from our own brothers. We must stop liking posts and comments that promote bad ideals and values in the name of social acceptance. We must stand up for the truth, no matter who says it. We must stand up for justice, no matter who it is for or against. Don't laugh at jokes that seek to cause disunity. It is that admonition my mom always gave me way back as a child. Do not join the multitudes to do evil, even if you have to stand alone. My fellow young men and women, we must resist the temptation to be popular at the detriment of what is right. Being popular is not a prerequisite for self-fulfillment or happiness. Very importantly, we must stop defining our identity, our self-worth, and indeed our personal value by what we possess, but by what and who we are and what we stand for. If anyone looks down on you simply because you don't possess something material, without having regards for what you carry inside, it tells more on the error in that person than it tells on you. Don't give in to pressure to be whom or what you are not. Even if all you have right now by walking in integrity is your head on your body, carried to your shoulders high, the value of integrity is far above any ill-gotten wealth. And to the wealthy, the first measure of poverty is the inability to be rich and stay quiet. It is the hallmark of a promoted slave. It is that desire to lord over others because you possess something, or to attempt to intimidate your fellow man because you have something he doesn't have. A poor mind with physical cash is a problem to himself and his society. Friends, the change with desire truly begins with you. It truly begins with me. It truly begins with simple things. Simple things like refusing to pay a bribe to do that which is unlawful. Simple things like refusing to drive on the side of oncoming vehicles and instead staying in lane regardless of the length of the traffic. Simple things like refusing to pay someone to sit for your child's examinations. Simple things like refusing to tamper with your electricity meter but instead choosing to pay your bills and encouraging others to do so. Simple things like voting incompetent people regardless of personal affiliation or gratification. Simple things like refusing to take a bribe to do that which you've already been paid for. Simple things like being faithful, loyal, and honest. So ask yourself, what can I start doing? What must I stop doing? What should I stop permitting? And what should I start allowing? Hear me, folks. Our future as a nation is not in the hands of the government. It is in my hands. It is in your hands. And we can start now and make a decision in favor of our collective progress. It won't take too long. Ours must not be a battle of the young men versus the old men, of the women versus the men. We need our women to speak up with power and show up with strength. We need our old men to dream dreams. We need our young men to interpret those dreams, giving life to them and converting them to visions. I submit that our best days as a nation are just ahead. We may not have a clearly articulated Nigerian dream on paper, but what we have are countless examples of Nigerians who, despite limiting conditions, are giving expression to their individual dreams and are currently shining the colors of the green, white, green globally. And while the cynics will be quick to tell you that ours is a foregone conclusion, and will be quick to remind you of the failures of our union, and will be quick to show you our broken infrastructure, and while these may seem true, they are but temporary, we must tell them that ours is a country of the most tenacious people on earth. We must remind them that we stood together against the disease that ravaged nations, and by grace we prevailed. We must show them our unbroken spirit and our interminable resolve to take our beloved country into the promised land. Listen, friends, the world is yet going to hear about our exploits as a nation. We will make it happen. It, however, begins with you. It begins with me, and it starts now. And to the past and present leaders of the West that have chosen to label us at one point in time or the other, we hear you clearly. But that's your opinion. That's not our identity. We are a country with some of the most hardworking individuals on earth. We succeed regardless of the odds stacked against us. We have tons of citizens with impeccable character, and arguably, we have some of the happiest and most friendly individuals you can find on this side of eternity. And even though as a nation, we may look right now like the labels you have chosen to place on us as we feel our way through our night season, but in the not too distant future from now, however, our day will yet dawn, and our light will burst forth like the morning sun, and the spirit of the Nigerian will rise to unimaginable heights, and the two white horses and the eagle will once again become a symbol of pride, of passion, and of hope. My father kept the side of the deal and gave my mom back her money. After my BSc, I went on to get my MD in architecture. I wish my dad were around to see me get those degrees. He had passed on shortly before my final BSc examinations. My name is Laolu Alabi, and I'm the ambassador of truth.